Since its founding in 1964, the core of PSU's Speech and Hearing Sciences program has been bachelor's and master's level education. We were an early entry into ASHA accreditation, with initial accreditation in 1972. At that time, we were the only Oregon program to be accredited, and one of only 5 programs in the entire Northwest, with 3 others being in Utah. Even along the I-5 corridor, only the University of Washington, Portland State University, and 3 of California's 20 schools were accredited at that time. Along with this early emphasis on pursuing the credibility and stature of ASHA accreditation, the PSU SPHR program set its early sights on the development of a doctoral program. The earliest proposal came in 1967, just 3 years after the department was founded. The plan was conceived as a collaboration with the linguistics department and included an impressive schematic of the potential areas of specialization that a student might choose. Even in 1967, specific reference is made to the doctoral shortage in our field. It's worth noting that this proposal was written before the addition was built onto the building that eventually became Newberger Hall. Thus, the space proposal for the doctoral program seems to reference a space that was substantially altered by construction a few years later. A particularly noteworthy inclusion in the space proposal is that Stage 2 includes space for animal holding and animal prep. Supporters of this proposal included industry giant Tektronix, the Portland Public Schools, and Harold Lillywhite on behalf of the organization that would later become CDRC. This proposal was, as you might guess, unsuccessful. But the dream of a doctoral program did not die. Efforts were mounted again starting in 1980 to establish a doctoral program. A preliminary proposal was submitted in 1983, and a final version went before the university in 1988. This proposal enlisted the support of numerous outside parties, including PSU alums Leanne Golper, Steve McFarlane, and Corinne Thomas Kirsting, longtime supporters Robert Blakely, Robert Marshall, and Phil Levinson, and Barbara Roberts, then Oregon's Secretary of State and later governor. This proposal had an interesting history. It worked its way through the university channels, taking about a year to gain approval from the faculty senate. Then the administration gave its approval, and the last step was to get funding approved from the Oregon legislature. Bob Castile recalls receiving a phone call from the university president one day, saying, "Congratulations, Bob, the funding was approved. You have your doctoral program." This was in 1990, on Election Day. Bob further recalls getting another phone call late that night, also from the university president, saying that ballot measure 5 had just passed. Longtime Oregonians will remember that ballot measure 5 placed a strong cap on real estate taxes and specifically reduced the amount of taxes that could be spent on education. The consequences of Measure 5 continue to be debated, with most people agreeing that it had a particularly brutal effect on state-funded education. That second phone call that Bob Castile received informed him that the hard-fought victory was to be short-lived. The doctoral program was canceled. In the end, PSU had an SPHR doctoral program for less than 1 day. One further doctoral program proposal was put forth in 1995. In these days, PSU had at least 2 rising stars on its faculty, John Tetnowski and Rhea Paul. The structure of this proposal was largely similar to the proposal in 1988, though it was turned down. It's been almost 20 years since this most recent proposal for a doctoral program at PSU was put forth. Conversations have continued, however, and this year we're working collaboratively with the School of Social Work on a new proposal for a doctoral program. We anticipate that the proposal will be ready to submit within about a year, and if approved, it could be operational within 5 years. Despite numerous setbacks and disappointments, the long-standing goal of a doctoral program at PSU, shared by generations of university faculty and students, may finally come to fruition.